All men by nature are equal in that equal right that every man hath to his natural freedom, without being subjected to the will or authority of any other man, being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty or possessions. What worries you, masters you. I have no reason to suppose that he, who would take away my liberty, would not, when he had me in his power, take away everything else. Whenever legislators endeavor to take away and destroy the property of the people, or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any further obedience. Who lies for you will lie against you. The most precious of all possessions is power over ourselves. Any single man must judge for himself whether circumstances warrant obedience or resistance to the commands of the civil magistrate. We are all qualified, entitled, and morally obliged to evaluate the conduct of our rulers. This political judgment, moreover, is not simply or primarily a right, but like self-preservation, a duty to God. As such, it is a judgment that men cannot part with according to the God of nature. It is the first and foremost of our inalienable rights without which we can preserve no other. Wherever law ends, tyranny begins. Don't let the things you don't have prevent you from using what you do have. The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. For in all the states of created beings capable of law, where there is no law, there is no freedom. Our incomes are like our shoes. If too small, they gall and pinch us, but if too large, they cause us to stumble and to trip. Liberty is to be free from restraint and violence from others. Logic is the anatomy of thought. Reading furnishes the mind only with materials of knowledge. It is thinking that makes what we read ours. Education begins the gentleman, but reading, good company, and reflection must finish him. Revolt is the right of the people. Who are we to tell anyone what they can or can't do? There is frequently more to be learned from the unexpected questions of a child than the discourses of men. The people cannot delegate to government the power to do anything which would be unlawful for them to do themselves. I have always thought the actions of men the best interpreters of their thoughts. It is one thing to show a man that he is in an error, and another to put him in possession of the truth. With books, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Where there is no law, there is no freedom. When we know our own strength, we shall the better know what to undertake with hopes of success. No man's knowledge here can go beyond his experience. Freedom of men under government is to have a standing rule to live by, common to every one of that society and made by the legislative power vested in it, and not to be subject to the inconstant, uncertain, arbitrary will of another man. Individuals have a right to defend themselves and recover by force what by unlawful force is taken from them. Every man has a property in his own person. This nobody has a right to, but himself. It is one thing to persuade, another to command, one thing to press with arguments, another with penalties. It is a mistake to think this fault tyranny is proper only to monarchies. Other forms of government are liable to it, as well as that. For wherever the power that is put in any hands for the government of the people and the preservation of their properties is applied to other ends, and made use of to impoverish, harass, or subdue them to the arbitrary and irregular commands of those that have it, there it presently becomes tyranny, whether those that thus use it are one or many. Curiosity in children is but an appetite for knowledge. The great reason why children abandon themselves wholly to silly pursuits and trifle away their time insipidly is because they find their curiosity balked and their enquiries neglected. All mankind being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty or possessions. How long have you been holding those words in your head, hoping to use them? To love our neighbor as ourselves is such a truth for regulating human society, that by that alone one might determine all the cases in social morality. New opinions are always suspected, and usually opposed, without any other reason but because they are not already common. The great question which, in all ages, has disturbed mankind, and brought on them the greatest part of their mischiefs has been, not whether be power in the world, nor whence it came, but who should have it. A father would do well, as his son grows up, and is capable of it, to talk familiarly with him, nay, ask his advice, and consult with him about those things wherein he has any knowledge or understanding. By this, the father will gain two things, both of great moment. The sooner you treat him as a man, the sooner he will begin to be one, and if you admit him into serious discourses sometimes with you, you will insensibly raise his mind above the usual amusements of youth and those trifling occupations which it is commonly wasted in. Government has no other end but the preservation of property. But there is only one thing which gathers people into seditious commotion, and that is oppression. If anyone shall claim a power to lay and levy taxes on the people by his own authority and without such consent of the people, he thereby invades the fundamental law of property and subverts the end of government. The discipline of desire is the background of character. The power of the legislative being derived from the people by a positive voluntary grant and institution can be no other than what that positive grant conveyed, which being only to make laws and not to make legislators. The legislative can have no power to transfer their authority of making laws and place it in other hands. Success in fighting means not coming at your opponent the way he wants to fight you. Every man carries about him a touchstone if he will make use of it, to distinguish substantial gold from superficial glitterings, truth from appearances. And indeed the use and benefit of this touchstone, which is natural reason, is spoiled and lost only by assuming prejudices, overweening presumption, and narrowing our minds. What if everything that happened here happened for a reason? To love truth for truth's sake is the principal part of human perfection in this world and the seed plot of all other virtues. Whoever uses force without right puts himself into a state of war with those against whom he uses it. And in that state all former ties are cancelled, all other rights cease, and everyone has a right to defend himself and to resist the aggressor. The Bible is one of the greatest blessings bestowed by God on the children of men. It has God for its author, salvation for its end, and truth without any mixture for its matter. It is all pure. The only fence against the world is a thorough knowledge of it. The body of people may with respect resist intolerable tyranny.